Welcome to the Life Self-Mastery Podcast, where we bring in entrepreneurs who have created online businesses and improved their lifestyles. Here's your host, Rohit Malhotra.
Hi everyone, I'm Rohit from LifeSelfMastery.com, and today we have Fatima Dicko, who's the CEO for Jetpack, which is an on-demand startup which can bring you emergency items in a pinch. After studying chemical engineering at Columbia, Fatima worked at P&G as a younger senior engineer. Fatima is a recent graduate from Stanford's MBA program. Welcome to the show, Fatima.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited for the conversation. Thanks for the invite, and I hope to have an awesome discussion.
Awesome. So, please share your journey as, you have a unique life journey as you've been an immigrant into US. So you can start about your childhood and, how you got into US and what made you become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I originally was born in Mali in West Africa, and I came to the United States when I was really young. At the time I had tuberculosis, and Mali's medical facilities couldn't treat the disease effectively. And so I came to the United States. My dad came a few years before my mom and I to study computer science. And when I got to New York City, as you can imagine, it was extremely overwhelming having to learn English, get integrated, learn an entirely new world. And I would say that entire experience probably started to put some of the seeds in place for entrepreneurship and what that's all about, primarily because I was always asking questions and being really inquisitive. And, as you can imagine, if you're in a place where you are not, you don't really understand what's going on, naturally your mind is going to gravitate towards asking questions. And, the more I continue to embark on this entrepreneurial journey, I find that most of it is just asking questions and testing hypotheses. So I would say that's how that played a role, into choosing to be an entrepreneur.
Got it. And, why did you want to solve this problem for, bring out emergency items for college students or college graduates?
Yeah, so for a lot of people who know me, I'm extremely forgetful when it comes to bringing the products that I need to different places. I'm constantly, my phone is dying, I need a charger, I need some sunscreen, all these different last minute items that I need. And so I realized other students were doing a similar thing in that they were asking their other friends for items, whether it was through text message, email, or Slack. But the more I started to dig into this, I realized that there was no way to use GPS to make that process easier. If you can imagine, if you're in the middle of a crowded place, there's no way to ask everyone in your immediate vicinity if they have something that you need. And we have seen the rise of the sharing economy. People are getting more and more used to this idea of using other people's items. In fact, people care more about having access to an item rather than actually owning the item. And so it was these trends and the problem that I was experiencing myself that led me to realizing that there has to be a way to use the people who are in your immediate vicinity to get those things you need right away.
Got it. And you're solving a huge market that's worth $13 billion, and it's growing college, university, on-demand market. But I want to talk about your competitors like DoorDash, Uber, Rush, Instacart, and how you're different and how you're able to differentiate yourself in such a crowded space.
Yeah, it's a great question. Obviously there's a lot of on-demand companies who follow a model of having delivery runners, essentially fulfill the different requests of people by accepting an order and then going to the store to pick up a product and then delivering it to the person. And where we feel that there's a unique opportunity area is in the 0 to 15 minute delivery time frame. If you think about a delivery runner going to a store and delivering a product, it's going to be very difficult to get into the 0 to 15 minute time frame because they need to park their car, find the right building, gain access into the building. And so one fundamental way that we're different is that we don't have delivery runners. We use students who are already in the area, who have a fundamental understanding of the campus, who have access into the buildings and so on. And so we're not having anyone pick up a request, go to a store and then come back, but rather we're using the people and allowing them to use their own products to fulfill the request.
Oh, that's interesting. So, so when you use students for using the app, do they get a payout for every time that they deliver products, or how do you try to monetize them in this sort of looks like a gig economy product for me?
Yeah, if it's an item that we stock, then they get the equivalent of $5 per transaction. If they use their own item, so something that they end up having around, then we take 15% of that transaction. And so, as you can imagine, you request something for $10, I end up having it, I'll take the $8.50, and then Jetpack essentially gets a service fee for connecting the two people.
Got it. And I want to talk about what are your customer acquisition channels, and how do you plan to get your first 1,000 users, or if you already have had your first 1,000 users, you can just let us know what was the strategy you used to get your first 1,000 users.
Yeah, one thing that was really interesting that I read was around really good platforms simply redirecting pre-existing behavior. And when I spoke earlier about people doing this already, one of the primary places students would go is on dorm listservs, Facebook groups, or Slack channels to essentially ask for these last minute items. And as a student, you are on these listservs, you are on these channels, and you can simply go there and acquire customers that way. So that's been a very effective customer acquisition channel for us.
Got it. And you raised capital from Republic, and over some time you've also raised till now. I think you raised around $800,000 from venture funds like Dorm Room Fund, Sophie, Precursor Ventures. So why did you use a platform like Republic, and how did you get on to raise funds from these high quality VCs?
Yeah, when we first talked about the idea to different investors, if you're not a college student, it can be initially pretty difficult to understand the value proposition, especially differentiating it from all of these other on-demand platforms that are there. And so we had a pretty difficult time raising funds early on in the business. People didn't really get it. They didn't think that we'd be able to compete in a world where essentially Amazon runs everything, and didn't understand the unique opportunity on campuses. And so we launched the campaign initially on Republic, which gave the opportunity for students around the country to become investors, and people who would actually use the product to be involved in this investment process. And that's how we raised our first $250K to essentially continue the momentum and the traction that we had on Stanford, and get onto other campuses and to revamp the product and so on. And it was through that process and seeing our growth and seeing people use it, seeing the product come to life, that's when we really gained some more leverage to be able to get some of the other investors on board. And so we've been able to bring in, as you mentioned, a lot of awesome investors. We're excited about the expertise that they can bring in. But that initial capital, Republic was so instrumental in getting us from that stage to where we are today.
Got it. And are you in the process of raising more funds? Because, as a founder, you need to keep on raising funds in such a crowded space.
Yeah, someone was mentioning your job as a CEO is slowly going to become almost entirely fundraising and hiring, which I am understanding a lot more now. But right now, we've wrapped up fundraising for now, and we're going to focus on expanding to other campuses, nailing the product, nailing customer acquisition, showing that we can get equilibrium on both sides of the marketplace, showing consistent growth, and then in Q2 of next year, hopefully going forward to raise a larger seed round.
Got it. And would you be still sticking on to getting more colleges on board for now, or just like Facebook, you're going to open it for everybody and make it a product which is not only specific to colleges?
Yeah, so we believe, there's 20.4 million college students in the US, and approximately 1 in 6 students every day broadcast a request for something they need, either through text message, email, or Slack. We believe that there's a large enough opportunity for us to focus for at least the next 12 to 18 months primarily on college campuses. However, we do believe in the future this has applicability in different locations and cities, whether that's, events like marathons and music festivals, or locations like airports, co-working spaces, large apartment buildings. And so the key is to really focus on college campuses, but make sure that we're gaining learnings that can be applicable to similar sorts of demographics and regions in the country as well.
Mm-hmm. And what is the revenue model for Jetpack? How do you make money? Is it focused on B2C, or do you also have a B2B element to it?
Yeah, so primarily right now, as I mentioned, we're taking a percentage of the different interactions on the platform when people use their own products. However, with any marketplace, as you collect more and more data on the types of things that are being requested and the types of things that are fulfilled, you can now start to hack supply by bringing these samples in and saying, on this campus, these are the top 3 requested products. Let's bring in samples of these products to be able to better fulfill demand. And you can imagine that this serves as an interesting B2B marketing platform. However, our primary focus right now is really that service fee from the B2C front in terms of connecting people who need things with the people who have them.
And I want to talk about some revenue numbers. Are you if you're comfortable talking about it, what's your cost of acquisition and your LTV numbers, and what are the revenue numbers you've done in the past 1 year or so?
Yeah, so with those numbers, those are things that we're keeping in-house right now. What we can share is that we're growing at about 13% week over week. And so we're focusing on transactions right now. But in terms of our CAC, LTV, and revenue numbers, those are things that we're saving internally as we get into the expansion.
You've raised close to $1 million. What is the money to be used for when you raise a seed fund of $1 million or less than that? Is it distributed towards hiring people, or or do you use it for paid ads? What is the strategy for a founder who goes on raise a seed fund? How do you make sure that you grow the company and add more people into your team?
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of that is going to go towards really expanding on campuses and customer acquisition. So this is going to be a combination of paying different brand ambassadors who are on these campuses and are able to send these emails out to the different email listservs, the different Slack channels, different events on campus. So really paying people who can look at this as essentially an internship in terms of growing a company on their campus from 0 users to a few thousand users. So a lot of the money will be going there to acquire people on campuses. We're going to be doing a road show, going around to different campuses, handing out different gifts and that sort of thing. And then we do want to bring in a head of technology and a head of product as we go forward. Our team is about 10 people right now, but there are going to be some upcoming key hires for us. But that will be where a majority of the funds go.
Got it. And I've been part of the investments when you were trying to raise funds on Republic, and I like what I liked is that you had shared a couple of updates to your investors. So do you think it makes sense to update your investors about your strategy going forward, or do you think an entrepreneur is not needed to update their investors on what is the roadmap and what they're planning to do in last few months, because so few entrepreneurs give an update about the company. So what is your take on that?
Yeah, I think updates are really important because they get people invested in the journey, right? It makes them understand the challenges that you're going through. It gives people an opportunity to jump in and add value as they see the things that are currently on your mind. And I think that, similar to why people buy products, oftentimes they don't buy what you're buying, they buy what you're selling, they buy why you're selling it. And I think by showing our journey, showing how we're persevering, it allows people to see why we're doing what we're doing and get invested in a deeper way. And so that's why I think it's important. I think quarterly is definitely, I wouldn't do anything more frequent than that because then it ends up taking time, and then the updates may not be as substantial, and then people start to wonder what's going on, and the updates are similar because things in a startup can go up and down and all over the place. And so I think quarterly is a pretty good frequency just to update people on what's going well, what's not going well, and where people can help if they want to.
Got it. And also, what is the way forward for Jetpack in 2018-19?
Yeah, the next 12 months is going to be hardcore campuses, customer acquisition, really nailing it so that we are, a dorm room name on campuses, and people understand, similar to like Venmo or Tilt. When you hear Jetpack, it's a product that is very familiar to students. And so just getting that brand notoriety, that visibility, that customer acquisition, continuing to nail down product market fit, show that people are requesting things, show our ability to fulfill those requests quickly. These are all things that we're going to be heads down executing on over the next 12 months.
Awesome. So let's quickly do the top 3. What's your favorite business book?
Yeah, so that changes probably every couple weeks or so. But right now, what I've been revisiting is The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Ben Horowitz does a really good job getting vulnerable with his story, his journey, his ups and downs, and really talks about how the hardest part of entrepreneurship is managing your own psychology, which I think is very, very true for so many reasons. And he also really, brings up a few points about the only way you fail is if you run out of money or if you give up, which is really inspiring because it puts the entire project and company into a game of resilience, which is very motivating for people as it becomes just you just need to be motivated to stick with it.
Yeah, and it's totally a great book, and a lot of founders on the podcast have talked about it. If you could go back in time when you started Jetpack, what is the one thing you would have focused on?
Let's see. I think that, going into Jetpack, we launched the backpacks and we put in the most important products in these backpacks. And what we got right was that students were a very effective way of delivering these products. But what was challenging and what we didn't imagine would be so difficult was understanding what to put in these backpacks. And so that's when we started to move and integrate the ability for people to transact their own items as well. And then by doing so, we were able to start to notice trends on different campuses that could inform what's in the backpacks. So I think if I could go back in time, I think we should have started with the marketplace and then brought in Jetpackers afterwards, rather than the reverse, which is what we ended up doing.
Got it. And what's your favorite online tool, for example, Gmail or Slack?
So right now, my favorite tool is Notion. We just moved to it. It's been phenomenal. It's increased our productivity by a great amount. And there's so many of these tools out there, but what Notion does really well is integrate everything from task management to document organization, keeping meeting minutes, onboarding packets for new developers. It's really been phenomenal. I've struggled to find a tool that's that comprehensive and that solid, and I've been super impressed, and I love it.
And what is the best way people can reach out to you?
Yeah, so my Twitter is at Fatima Dicko _. Our website is jtpk.co, and our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram are all at Let's Jetpack.
Awesome. So, thank you very much for coming on to the show, Fatima. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the invite. This was awesome, and I love the conversation.
Thanks for listening to the Life Self-Mastery podcast, where we teach you how to start and grow your online business. For more information, visit Rohit's blog at www.lifeselfmastery.com.